So you're working with your buyer, they're pre-qualified, you did some showings, they've decided what they like, and so now you're getting close to that point where, hey, we're gonna be writing an offer, or maybe you are ready to write an offer. To do that, you need to have access to the forms library, is how we would refer to it, which is the collection of all the different forms that you might use in a transaction. So there's a little over 200 forms available in California through the California Association of Realtors. You aren't gonna use all of those, but you will use a lot of them. So there's a learning curve here. What you need to know when you're working with the buyer is that the offer form is called the residential purchase agreement. And when you find that in the forms system, there will be several other forms that are attached to it. We do have a component of this training that will go in great detail on specifically that form, the residential purchase agreement, and the ones that print out with it. And when I say print out, I mean either as one large PDF, or if you are going to print it on paper. In either case, you really want to be familiar with this document. So the residential purchase agreement and the other forms that go with it, it's fairly lengthy. It does change periodically. This is a key part of being a knowledgeable professional, is understanding that document, its current version. If you've been an agent for 20 years and you haven't really studied it since 10 years ago, you are no longer a professional, in my opinion. That document has changed substantially. Not understanding it is a great way to expose your client to more risk, set yourself up and your client to basically be harmed. It is not great. So you really want to be up to speed on that document. Also, being really fluent in that document allows you to, which levers to pull on, which terms to negotiate on, helps you really represent your client better when you're writing that offer, give them the best chance of getting that offer accepted, or get it accepted, but not set yourself up for problems when you get later in the process to inspections or appraisal issues and other things. So you really want to know how all of that works in the purchase agreement. With that as a primer of the importance of the purchase agreement, you have to get to it. And so the way you get to it is through forms system. And so there's a couple different forms systems. Our office uses the forms through SkySlope, which is a compliance tool that allows us to save documents after they're signed, and that becomes our checklist. So if the DRE audits us someday, all of the forms that you filled out and have signed, that's where they live. But it's also a tool for when you're initially filling them out, you would fill them out and then you can send them off for electronic signature or print them out and so on. As a new agent working with your first client, there's actually a setup process in SkySlope forms, or if you decide to use one of the other forms, there's setup process with that as well. We'll have another video where that'll show you just the screens that you need to go through, but basically you need to log in, activate your what's called your NRDS number, which every realtor member in the US has a unique NRDS number, or called a NERDS number. And so you would input that number so they know you're a realtor. That gives you access to the forms, and then you can write an offer. And so at a minimum, what you should do at this point is make sure you can get logged in to SkySlope forms or an equivalent, and make sure you can find the residential purchase agreement, or RPA. And your test assignment here is to see if you can just go ahead and fill it out. It can be a complete disaster, but force yourself to read through all the fillable fields on that document, and it will generate some questions that you will hopefully get answered as we go through our more in-depth RPA class. But besides that, there may be some things you can talk to about your mentor. Those are the things you want to do. Get it set up, and then find the RPA, and then actually start filling out a test RPA. The details don't matter at this point. You just want to make sure you know what questions it's asking you, what things you need to fill out in order for it to be complete. I want to make one note specific to SkySlope, which is their support. They have a ton of resources, but even besides that, I highly recommend, if you are stuck, you're not sure how to access the form, and you have some question that maybe isn't addressed in this training, I highly recommend using and accessing their chat support more than anything else. So it's available pretty much 24/7. I think their average response time is something like 20 seconds. So this is not the kind of thing where you're waiting for hours for responses typically. And their technicians, from our experience, have been pretty knowledgeable and can solve most problems. There's of course exceptions, but it's very widely been considered helpful. So you can access that through the site, look for that chat support, take advantage of it if you have questions. Even if it's after hours, there's typically someone that's responding within seconds. With that, that's how you would get started with your forms with your first buyer. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you learned something, or if this helped you solve a problem, follow me for more.